Hey YouTube, this is Pump. This is going to be my first episode of my big guild push with the goal of getting the 0.5% title this season. This first episode is going to be around a week of my progress in guild keys, and I hope you guys enjoy. Really quickly, I want to introduce my team and what our comp does well. The team is Windwalker Monk, Outlaw Rogue, Blood DK, Resto Druid, and Fire Mage. We will be able to do really big packs eventually. Our AoE damage profile is pretty insane when we get to the big pulls. The only con, in my opinion, is that Blood DK and Fire Mage aren't entirely meta, and we kind of have to route around each other and work to our strengths. But I've been playing with these guys for 1 to 3 years, and we've known each other a long time. So this first key we did is a 22 SPG on a fortified week. There's a lot to learn here on this pack, and we decided the best way for us to deal with it is to interrupt after trying this on the first go. We had our tank insta-die, and then our healer died, and it spiraled down from there on this first pack. But we do end up finishing it off. I just slow die, and I have to wait for them to res me here because the walk back is really long. But this pack is really punishing to die at, so definitely figure out how your team wants to deal with it. There is a strat where you leave the Dominators casting, but our team comp has just so much AoE CC that we decided it's best for us to just kick and go. Skipping forward to the end of dungeon, we still easily time this, which is crazy, with 14 deaths all to the Subjugator packs, essentially. And yeah, so we can easily time this at a higher key level. Playing flawlessly, I think we could do it at a 24. Maybe 25 if we're looking to pull bigger. So stuff to improve on, but hey, we'll take our 9 IO on the first key of the day. Going on to AV, we had two Azure Vault keys, 123 and 122. So we opted to practice at the 22 first, and then after we mastered it, we would try the 23. So important note on this first one is we are assigning interrupts to these lashers on the right so that they get grouped quickly. With this route, we purposely let the little whelplings go off so that we get percent faster. I prefer them to doing the frog route. So we interrupt. They're all grouped together now. We let some Mystic Vapors go off, but we get them all for the most part. My monk insta-dies, which really isn't ideal. He dies to Vapors because we missed some on the left-hand side, but still got the practice in. We just need to AoE interrupt a little bit better after we interrupt them on the right-hand side to get them grouped. So this poll is really good for us after we get cooking. Obviously, you can see at the meters, but we love big polls on fire. So good first pack to practice on, and we have one other big pack to practice on at 22. So moving on to the big poll after first boss. This is another Lust lineup. We just need to make sure we're kicking Waking Bane. Waking Bane is the most important cast, aside from the casts like Piercing Shards, they kill the tank, but that's a tank problem, and he'll call for help if he needs it. Other than that, we just AoE stun after we get going. So we get to full burn. I'm just burning on the big guy. We love this pack. Just need to make sure that no Waking Bane goes off. If I get slept during combust, might as well throw the key in the bin in my mind. So yeah, no tank death. We didn't let Piercing Shards go off at all. Good practice on this pull. Funny little moment here in this key. So we knocked it to a 21 to practice. Uh, my rogue needs a repair, and we didn't have any auto hammers on us. So my druid goes into Discord and hops and asks some guildies to put one in the guild bank, and they get thundering, and it wipes us here, which is a really funny spot to wipe at. So we're like, all right, it was bricked anyways. We had a bunch of sloppy deaths at this 21. So now we have our 23 AV ready to go, and we feel practiced enough, and we're ready to go. So going to this 23 now, this first pull we had never really messed up this badly. So what happens here is our tank doesn't uproot them on the right hand side immediately. So the stuff we just practiced kind of goes in the trash and we start panicking. So I'm ready to kick mine and they don't get pulled up immediately. And just this minor mistake messes up our mental and like our kick order because now we're kicking really late and I want to be ramping on another target already. So we're late to this go and we slow die from Mystic Vapors going off, and our healer insta dies from Vapors as well. So we kind of just this pack just immediately falls apart after that, and we just messed up the opener. So we decided to sack it and bring it to a 22 right after this. So into our 22 Azure Vault, do we end up timing? We execute our opener flawlessly this time around. We did our interrupts perfectly. There was no deaths, and my monk absolutely slammed on this first pack. He went nuts. And then on the staircase pack, we actually got here so fast we didn't have lust for it, and we still did the pull. We did it fine. Our damage was actually really good, and we still got our AoEs off, and we skipped to the end, and we time it comfortably with 3.5 minutes left, which just goes to show that we could have timed this at 23 if we didn't mess up our opener in the past one, in my opinion. But yeah, only deaths in that dungeon were like the intentional death when you do the skip. They were scared to do the skip with slow fall, so they just intentionally died. And I think we only had like one death. So yeah, really good key. Moving into Algathar, this was a 22 first. We had two keys of it again. We had a 22 and a 23, so we started the 22 to practice. This key was brutal on explosive week. We accidentally pulled the entire room here. Might as well be impossible unless if your healer is an explosive god. And yeah, we fall over dead. I think one explosive went off, or our tank just fell over dead because there was too much. So we wipe there, and then we go back and wipe again to, I believe it was just explosive that time around, or healer got hit by a swirly. But either way, we need more practice, so we go to a 21. So into the 21, we learned that we can't chain pull this too quickly. Bursting became too much. Again, bursting and explosive is brutal for Algathar. You have to play this tree area pretty precisely. So we have a DPS death, and then my healer also dies because explosive is a little too much. Just need to go a little bit slower in this entire room. But other than that, we played pretty fine up until this point at 21. So we decided to play out the 21 till the end because it is IO for me, and we still need to practice at the end. And obviously, you can see that there's 15 deaths because we were testing some stuff. But good learning key. I still gained 7 IO from this one, and then now we need to try the 23. So into this 23, we had some costly deaths at the beginning that cost us quite a bit of time, but the key was still looking okay up until this point where our tank died, and then we drag it into the next pack, and we don't kick missiles, and then we have a DPS die, and then it spirals from there. We eventually end up taking a look at our route after this, and we end up deciding that we're trolling by not doing a shroud skip at the beginning to have more efficient trash. So we end up changing our route after the end of this. But overall, I mean, this was a really close key for how poorly we played at this end area. We're just not kicking missiles, and it gets out of hand really quickly. So this 22 had quite a bit of issues. We B-resed before first boss, and then we actually had our healer die pretty quickly in the first boss from a swirly, I believe. So we end up wasting probably 2-3 minutes there. And my mental throughout this is like, oh, really? We bricked it on first boss, but we actually play pretty flawlessly after that. And we end up making it to this last area with Lust, and we play pretty well. And we're able to get to boss, and we time this barely with 40 seconds left, which I will happily take. We did make some route adjustments, and those played a lot better than our old routes. So yeah, learned a lot with this, and we learned a lot of struggle spots. But I think that this was just a really rough key on explosive and bursting week. So happy to time this at 22, and we're moving on to the next key. So into 23 court. We never done this route before. This was with a rogue skipping and unlocking the gate for us. So this is our lust spot, and we bring in imps here, and I start panicking. Like, I'm not in combust. I'm not building any ignites. Our AoE rotation starts to falter, and we just completely wipe two embers, killing our healer, and it becomes a full wipe, I believe. Definitely need to coordinate our kicks there. Really poor play. Actually, it isn't a full wipe, but this ends up costing a key for sure. Um, so yeah, we just need to coordinate our CCs better. We end up wiping to another pack of imps, and it just comes down to calling out our order for kicks. And yeah, I end up setting up Omni CD after the end of this episode, and that helps us track a lot better for calling out order for how we're doing these CCs. Now we're into a 22 Nokhuud. Not a whole lot to say about this dungeon, honestly. I skipped right to the end because we played pretty safe. We didn't do many double or triple pulls in the plains area. We played pretty flawlessly all throughout. I mean, we only had two straight deaths, and we ended up timing this with around 5 minutes left on a 22. It was almost a two chest. So our biggest optimizations for this key is definitely double pulling more in the plains area, and this was a fort week, so definitely have to look to pull bigger in the plains area to get this on high keys. But happy to time this. Let's get some sad music in here for another bricked 23 at the subjugator pack. So now we're into a 22 temple. Um, Played pretty safe this entire time. We did not double pull anything aggressively, and you can tell my damage overall at the end of this dungeon is pretty tragic. I think Fire Mage to excel in this dungeon needs double pulls. The three target constant cleave stuff is pretty bad for us. We either want like one target or five or above targets, in my opinion. So this dungeon in particular just feels bad, and I need to figure out our double pull scenario and what we're gonna do at the third boss area, because that's where you can start gaming the dungeon a bit. Is big pulls in that area. So yeah, but we played pretty clean all throughout. We end up timing it with just a minute left, but there's a lot of optimizations with the trash in third boss area, in my opinion. So for 84k overall from me, I will take this time. That's pretty good. Into this 22 halls, we had some tank prog to learn here. This is what bricks the key. We full wipe to bears. Uh, I don't know how to help him necessarily, other than he needs to be kiting all the time, I believe. This is especially bad on Fort Week. Death Knight needs to kind of ramp their defensives to get going, and then they start living fine. But he died in the intro bit, so a little bit of tank prog there. But we move on into a 23 ruby now. We're walking up to our lust spot, so this is a double pull. We just are really poor with cinder bolts, and I don't get to get any of my damage off here. So I alter, and I think I'm fine with alter, but I get cinder bolted, and living bomb plus cinder bolt kills me, and that's in my double lust, and my damage is now bricked, and the key might as well be bricked. And you can see me angrily waving around my mouse because I'm so frustrated. That it's like the worst thing is when you die in double lust on Fire Mage. Man, does it feel like your damage just immediately goes in the dumpster. So we actually ended up making it all the way to final boss here, but we were so far behind that we started aggressively double pulling, and that ends up breaking it. But really, really close, honestly. So now we're into 22 ruby, same thing. Our lust is in a different spot this time because we were moving pretty quickly. So we walk up here, we get our double lust, and I start ramping. Um, Tragedy strikes though, so I'm really scared. I just G invis. I'm like, I'm not gonna die here, but here my tank dies, and he died to flame dance, double flame dance. It looks like he just gets one shot because of it, but flame dance hurts your tank, and then at the end of the cast it hurts everybody, but can be pretty brutal if your tank's not prepared for it. So here he falls over dead, and then I die in double lust again. But it doesn't end up mattering. We end up timing this with just barely 30 seconds left. We definitely had some slop at that lust pack back there, but we clean it up and we get it done with 30 seconds left. A lot of optimizations to be made there. We need to be double pulling more frequently, and yeah, me not dying in double lust would be a huge DPS increase. Now we're into a 21 halls. I messed up on this last boss. I actually messed up a rune, and then I blocked and just let it run out. But overall, this dungeon was pretty clean. We had a tank DC at Herja, but that was really the only mess up. Those are the stray deaths. Other than that, we have a lot of time to save in the Fenrir area. I think we'll be pulling more aggressively there, but also take my 2 IO and some experience. So now we're into 23 court. It's tyrannical, and I'm letting my druid do all the baiting. I just get a stick near melee, and unga bunga, I hit the boss and do damage. Feels really good with double lust. So we end up timing this with a minute 43 left at 23. And I think we have a bunch of optimizations to make with our pulls since this is Tyrannical Week. We were pulling pretty safe and not double pulling much, which I think we need to be doing more on Tyrannical Weeks especially. So, yep, a lot of time to save with double pulls. Now we're into 24 RLP, and man, this was so close to being the key, dude. Oh, it was so close. We had one wipe that was useless. I think we accidentally pulled the dragon or something, and it was like, okay, whatever, we fast wipe. And then we get back to boss. We're actually owning second boss, but we have some tank prog here. Apparently at high keys, there's some weird overlap. They can just like one shot the tank, and he didn't know to be prepared for it. But he learned how to deal with it after this key, and we end up timing at 23 right after this. But look at our timer. We're at 9 minutes. Boss is at 29% HP. Say we do another like 45 seconds here. We're going to the last area with like 8-ish minutes. It could have been so doable at this point, especially if we don't die. So yeah, really close. And we learned how to deal with the tank prog here. I'm not going to show it, but we end up continuing this boss for probably a half hour to 45 minutes, learning where to spend CDs and just practicing at 24 so that we could do it easily on 23. So our practice ends up paying off. We end up timing this 23 RLP. We had a couple stray deaths here and there. We also had a double pull lined up that we were going to do, but it ended up not lining up when we actually got there. The pat was in a wrong spot, but still really, really happy with this. I think this is my like most prestigious 23 timed this season. I only have like 3 timed 23s at the time of this video, and this one was definitely the hardest one of those 3. So really happy with that, and that's the end of the IO gain for this episode. So to summarize everything we did this episode, I learned how to use MDT for routing to figure out double pulls. Fire Mage really needs those double pulls to excel in big keys. I gained around 105 IO over around 11 hours of gameplay, which I think is really good. I had a lot of fun learning with my friends, and I think we can gain a lot more this week, and I'm looking forward to our pushes. I also set up Omni CD for the next session, and I'm really excited to show you guys that. Really quick, I wanted to show some stats just because I thought they were interesting. So the title cutoff right now is 3,048, and there's only 2 mages, one of which being hopeful, that would make that cutoff currently. So I have my work cut out for me to get near the title. So I'll catch you guys in the next episode.